Studying biology at the molecular level starts off really at the elemental level, what makes a biological molecule. And the main biological molecule that makes molecules organic is C for carbon. So most of the biological molecules we think about, they have a carbon chain as their backbone. So molecules in general are going to be large molecules found in the bodies of living things. And there are four basic types of large molecules, or macromolecules, macro means large, that we can find. Today we're going to talk about three of them: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins. There's also nucleic acids, which we'll talk about later on. But these large molecules are built by smaller molecules. So the smaller molecules are actually called monomers. Monomers are the building blocks for polymers, which are the longer chains of molecules, which eventually make a macromolecule. So if you think about all of these monomers as the building blocks, they continue to bond together and create some sort of a function, a functional unit, and those functional units are going to be our macromolecules that are very important to living things. Okay? And the cool thing is that these monomers can be broken down, rearranged, and rebuilt into new structures. Okay? So our first macromolecule I want to talk about is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, when you think about eating carbohydrates, breads, cereals, grains, anything, pastas, anything that really has sugar. So the building blocks of carbohydrates are going to be called monosaccharides. So the monomers for carbohydrates are monosaccharides. And each of these monomers can be built in various ways, creating different types of sugars, from basic small chain sugars of glucose to fructose and sucrose and lactose, all the way up into even cellulose, which these wood blocks, this wood, is actually made out of. Okay? So as carbohydrates begin to be put together, we have plenty of building blocks. The monomers for carbohydrates, again, are monosaccharides, and the main source of energy for the cells is sugar. So when we think carbohydrates, we think energy. We can also think structural wise, in plants they make cellulose, which are the plant walls, and that's what makes them so strong and rigid. And another form of a long chain, a starch, is glycogen. And animals like to store their long-term storage of carbohydrates in the form of glycogen. And that's our first macromolecule, carbohydrates. Our second type of macromolecule are proteins. We probably have all heard of proteins. We get our proteins when we eat meat, dairy, eggs, drink milk. There are a lot of protein in all of those products. Some people like to use these big old jugs of protein shakes as they lift weights and they try to build their muscles. So one of the functions of proteins is going to be structural wise, muscles, bones, but proteins play a variety of roles. Actually, our DNA is just a code for different types of proteins, and we'll learn the details of that later on, but we need to know that proteins are very important not only for structures, but they can also be enzymes to help speed along chemical reactions. They can act as hormones to send out signals throughout the body, and they can also act as our doorways into our cells to allow some big molecules inside and out of the cells. So proteins are very, very important to living things, and they really are the code to what a living thing is the proteins. So the building blocks of proteins are going to start off with amino acids. So the amino acids are going to act as our monomers. So think of each one of these blocks as an amino acid. And as amino acids are put together, they are going to form different types of proteins. And depending on the shape and the structure of the protein and the order of the amino acids, that is going to determine the function. Now, one thing interesting about proteins is that since they are so important, they can actually end up changing shape and size and actually be called denaturing. So if something happens, maybe too much heat, the pH is different, homeostasis is not maintained, then we can have a mixed up protein. And guess what? If it's not in the right order, it doesn't work. So it's really important for the body to maintain homeostasis, really to allow these proteins and enzymes, which are examples of proteins, to work in the body. So again, proteins are another macromolecule, and their building blocks are amino acids. A third macromolecule that I want to talk about are lipids. Now, lipids are fats, and we think fat, we might always think negative, but fats can actually be a good thing depending on what type of fats we have and how much fat we actually have. So the function of fat, one, to store energy, and also lipids or fats are really important in the cellular membranes too. So lipids are a very important aspect of our biology. And again, some places we can get that, simply from oil, butter, some other dairy products. There's a lot of products that we think of that have fats in them, but again, oil is a real common one, and butter, and there's various types of fats. So the building blocks of lipids are fatty acids. And fatty acids, again, just like our other macromolecules, are the monomers. And as the fatty acids are bonded together, they are going to form a particular type of fat, which again is going to serve a particular function. Okay, so that is our third macromolecule, lipids. So always remember, lipids are fats, and their building blocks or their monomers are fatty acids, and their functions are to store some long-term energy. Function is to make cellular membranes. So that is our third macromolecule, lipids. The next level of studying biology is at the cellular level. At the cellular level, microscopes are often used, and somebody might want to study perhaps the reaction of bacteria to a particular antibiotic. So that would be one example of how scientists could study biology at the cellular level. The next level of study is at the tissue, organ, and organ system level. So a botanist, for example, might want to study what tissues create the rings on a tree and how those tissues function to allow for that tree to survive. The next level of studying biology is the individual level. So I might be a dog trainer trying to figure out the best way to train a dog. So I'm focusing on an individual of a species. So let's give it a shot. You want a treat? Sit. Sit pretty. No, sit pretty. Down. Lay down. Roll over. And last one. Bang, you're dead. Well, it looks like we still have some work to do on that one. The next level of study in biology is at the population level. A population is a group of species that can breed and interact in a given area during a given time. So if I were an entomologist or one who studies insects, I may focus on studying the population of bumblebees that are living on these flowers behind me here in my backyard. So let's zoom in and take a quick look at them. See if I can find one here. Well, I'm not going to test my luck anymore. I'm afraid I'm going to get stung. The next level of study in biology is at the community level. A community is a group of populations in a given area. So if I were a forester, I may decide to survey my whole forest to look at the tree community in which my forest is composed of, and that would help me determine the dominant species found in that forest. The next level of study in biology is at the ecosystem level. An ecosystem would include all of the communities, so all of the living things, and all of the non-living things in that area. So that would include the weather, the amount of precipitation, the inorganic soil particles, the geology, so all of the living and non-living things in a particular area. So if I were to do a study, I may study how the physical and chemical properties of this water, of this creek, influence the type of insects and other macroinvertebrates that are able to live within this body of water.
And the final level of biological organization, or levels of study in biology, is the biosphere, which is going to be the most complex, because that not only includes all of the living things and the non-living things, but it also has all of Earth, all the places where organisms can live, from deep ocean trenches to mountain peaks. So in order to study the biosphere, that involves a lot of communication with the scientific community, as well as a lot of research, a lot of time, and a lot of understanding of the global concerns. And the main issue currently that is being looked at a biosphere level is global climate change. Thanks for watching the Characteristics of Life and Levels of Biology webcast. Make sure to take the quiz that follows on Canvas, and if you have any questions, make sure to bring those to class next time. Thanks.